I'm Flic, and you're listening to Everyday Burnout Conversations. This is the honest podcast that shares burnout expertise along with the stories of others from all walks of life that strive to inspire and help you manage and avoid burnout. Now, my passion for burnout and self-care came about when I became a mental health writer who'd lost her own mental health to severe burnout. And it's an irony that's not lost on me. So get set to enjoy another great conversation, delightfully wrapped up in some wisdom, humour, and great storytelling. Enjoy. In this Everyday Burnout Conversation, I sit down to chat with Karolyne LaFortune, owner of EmbodiPole Sensual Arts. Now, when Karolyne first discovered pole dancing, little did she know it would become her sanctuary and means of profound self-discovery. Her initial pole focus was led with a fitness-focused mindset, and that was propelled by that real masculine energy of ambition, action, drive, and strength. However, when her life changed with the pandemic, pregnancy, and becoming a mum to 2 young children, this orchestrated a fascinating shift towards her focusing now on the feminine forces, and that's that space of receptivity, emotion, and presence. Karolyne shares how this transition allowed her to tap into her body's intuition, slow down, and embark on a path of holistic growth and healing. Now, as our conversation progresses, we explore the dynamic interplay of masculine and feminine energies within pole dancing and how it mirrors that balance necessary in life, contributing to our overall well-being and interpersonal relationships. Karolyne helps us contemplate the equilibrium of self-care and self-love, reminding us of how vital it is to listen to our bodies and trust our intuition, especially when the world seems to push us to our limits. So, time to settle in and get ready to listen to another gloriously candid and fascinating everyday burnout conversation with the fabulous Karolyne LaFortune.
I'm so happy to talk to you today because, you've been part of a very exciting journey for me, it has to be said, and quite eye-opening. And so to give context for anyone listening, I came to one of your classes. You have an incredible pole dancing studio, EmbodiPole in Ottawa, and I came to do the Synergy program, the classes. I'm sure, have I even said that right? Is that the right term?
Sensual Synergy, actually.
Synergy, thank you. And I felt so intuitively called to do it. I can remember literally filling in my details on the form thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this. And then as soon as I walked in, I was like, this is why I'm doing this. So I can remember us chatting and we were talking a little bit about kind of life and what led me there and what I do. And I spoke about burnout and you were like, you know what? I've experienced a bit of burnout, identity crisis, but really, looking at it, it was a spiritual awakening, to which I just went, ooh, amazing. Tell me more.
Yeah, it was a journey, that's for sure. So I've had the studio I'm going on 8 years now. And I started in 2016. So it started more as a whole tricks, and even at the beginning we had workout classes, we had yoga, we had kettlebell. It was very very fitness, strong, and which was fine because I felt like that was me at the time, and I was really tapping into my masculine energy and just really I'm gonna be strong and building and go and just building tricks and accomplishments. And then in 2020, pandemic happened. I also got pregnant because then we're like, what else are we going to do? Let's have a baby. So I feel like at that moment, that's when, the world was shut down. I didn't know what the hell was going on with my studio anymore. We had we opened and closed 5 different times. So that was really hard and challenging. And then being pregnant, that kind of forced me to slow down And
Right.
especially during my first trimester with my son, I have 2 kids. And with my son, like the first trimester, I was dead to the world. Like I'm so thankful that we actually were in a pandemic and that we were shut down, because I'm like, I don't know how I would have worked, because I was so tired, and so like I was sleeping almost like 18 hours a day. I felt like a cat, basically. I just get up, eat, go back to sleep. But at that point, I remember feeling such an emotional whirlwind and such a like identity. I feel like that's where my identity crisis kind of started, because I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like I own a pole dance studio, like a pole fitness studio, and I can't do any of the tricks. We're closed right now. I don't know what the future is going to look like. Do I even still like pole? And I kind of felt like maybe that's where my disconnection to the pole started happening. And it was just such a like eye-opening experience and like a pivot point for my life, because then after that I was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna focus on what I can do, and rather than like pushing through and doing tricks on the pole and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, what can I actually work with? What are my limitations? And what kind of other creative ways can I navigate this journey? So I was like, second trimester, I was feeling better, so I had more energy, and that's when I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to just dance and just have fun and put on a song and just dance. And I remember that first time I was like, oh, I'm like pregnant, this doesn't feel right. And I was way up in my head.
Yeah.
And I was constantly just like, this sucks. I can't do anything. And then I was like, okay, let's just shake it out, drop in a little bit. And then I think it was like the second song I put on, I was like, okay, this feels a little better. I'm getting more into my body, and I can let go more of like what my negative thoughts are. So yeah, it was such a weird time for me, because I was like, I'm not used to this. I'm used to go, go, go. And now I'm being forced to stop. And that's kind of like where I started learning about the feminine and masculine energies. And like, I was very strongly in my masculine, and because it's like the go-getter, the direction, the purpose, the like, I need to do more and do more, rather than just sit, relax, and take it in and receive. So it was such an interesting time in my life where like, I just, I don't know what happened there, because I was like, okay, I'm going to take some time, rest, really listen to my body, hone in on what it wants. And to like, at that moment, I was like, the studio is in, I don't know what's going on. So I'm just going to take this time for myself and to just be with my body and take care of my body. And I really want to like nurture myself so that my baby can thrive. And that's exactly what I did. So I just took some time, and then like, I remember actually it was like third trimester. I was like, really like, I can't pole dance anymore. I can't do anything. This sucks. What am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And then I had the baby, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. Like the postpartum was a little bit of a journey to kind of
Yeah.
get back to like recover from that. It was a time.
It's fascinating. I'm listening to this, and I mean, I think there's a lot of small business owners who, you're just thrown into disarray, aren't you? When the pandemic, like everything became so uncertain for everyone on so many levels. But I can't even begin to imagine what it would have been like to have this incredible business that you're setting up and you put your heart and soul and blood, sweat and tears into, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And it's interesting. I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, so you had that, and I've definitely seen people kind of burn themselves out during that period as a small
goodness, yeah,
just trying and throwing everything into like trying to stay afloat. But I'm listening to you and I'm like, this is really cool, because you were like, okay, what else? At this point we wanted a family, so we're going to try for a family, and you kind of went with the flow. And I'm listening and I'm thinking that kind of small business owner, you tend to go into your masculine energy, don't you? Because you're just
absolutely
ambitious and you're just throwing everything into it. So to make that switch was actually really big, Karolyne.
It was huge. I was like, I don't know what's happening to me, because I was always very direction, purpose, like driven, ambitious. That was me. Well, I mean, I still have that, but I less of that right now. I feel like I have more balanced with,
It's interesting, isn't it? And so it's that kind of like, I guess in a way overachieving. It's just that like, I'm going to throw everything into this. And were you like that as a kid?
No.
Okay.
I mean, well, because I felt like previously I always thought I didn't have a good work ethic because I never worked a job that I loved.
Wow.
So I was like, before opening the studio, I was serving and I was like a bartender. And I think before that, at some point, I had a desk job, and that was the worst job I ever had. It was like a data entry for an insurance company. And like, I just remember I was like always late. I was like calling in. No, I don't know. Maybe I called in sick a few times when I didn't really have to, but I was just like not. And then I just thought like, that's the way I am. I guess I don't like, work just sucks and I'm going to accept what it is. And then finally, when I kind of felt that like that light inside of me where like, I need to work for myself.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm like, I'm going to open up my own studio.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah.
And so were you a dancer when you were a kid? Like, is this something, because I'm trying to like, how did you tune into yourself so well without, it sounds subconsciously as well?
Well, I did, like, I have a dance background-ish. Like, I mean, ish. Like, I started dance classes when I was 3, and then it was like on and off. I did some different styles here and there. And then I did, like, I think I danced till I was like 10 or something like that. And then I didn't really do anything until I started burlesque in 2009. And I felt like, I started burlesque and pole at around the same time. And I just felt like that's kind of what helped me tap more into my sensuality and really feel into my body and like reclaim my power.
Yes.
And like, it just, that's at that time where in my life where I was like, I need to be around more women. And because I was like, the restaurant industry and like at school, I was always the cool girl hanging out with the guys kind of thing. And then I was like, because I just never really liked being around other girls, or I felt like I didn't fit in and I wasn't cool enough to hang out with the cool girls. So I was just like, oh, well, the guys are simple and we get along. And like, my friends are like the nerdy guys.
It's funny. I was the same as a kid. I had a big group of lads that were my mates, and they were so fun, and we always had so much fun. But I really tried to stay away from the drama.
Well, that's it, right?
My peers, yeah. So it's interesting. I find this really fascinating. And so what drew you to burlesque and pole initially?
I just remember I was dating this guy at the time, and we ended up going to a burlesque show because I had a friend, I think, who was in that troupe. And so we went to go see her perform and see the troupe perform. And I was just blown away by the show. And I was like, I want to be on that stage. And I also have stage, like a performance background because I played music. So I did a lot of recitals and I did a lot of like playing with bands and things like that. So I'm used to being on stage and having that spotlight. So that's kind of what drew me to that, because I was like, this is it's so creative, it's so sensual, and it's so sexy. And I'm like, I want to be that. And so yeah, I ended up joining that troupe after, and then performing with them for a little bit until I started my own burlesque troupe. I think it was in 2011.
Oh, amazing. Oh, it's so funny when you see someone for the first time, and maybe it's seeing someone in person as well, because I really like your social media. I love EmbodiPole's social media. And so for a few months before I signed up to do the synergy, sensual synergy classes, I was watching this.
Right.
And so I loved it. But I can remember that first class and when you were showing us how to do some of the spins, and I was just like, oh, it's amazing. It's so empowering. That's all I can describe it. There's like this empowering energy that comes from watching a woman do this. It's just amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's probably a bit like when you went to that burlesque show where you're like, oh,
I was like, oh, well, and it was like, I had the same feeling when I did my first pole class. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, I'm hooked. It's like hooked after the first spin.
I know, because it's so important as adults as well that we continue to play. Like my background with hospital play therapy and whatever, I know how therapeutic it is to play and to tap into that side of us. And I think it's so important as adults. And I think that's why I just love the pole, because it's that kind of that playfulness where you're forced out of your head.
Well, that's the feminine energy.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so come on, talk to us a little bit about the masculine and feminine energy.
Well, so the masculine, I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but it's the conscious, it's the logic, it's in the head, it's like the drive, the go-getter, the purpose. It's like it's gotta go. And feminine energy it's the receiving, it's the feeling, the emotions, and just the softness, and just being in the body. That's in the feminine. So it's like grounding. It's just,
that lovely flow.
The flow and that's it, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Like there's that element of compassion and love with the feminine energy, and I do believe that a lot of people who burn out are really missing that in their lives. They don't have
absolutely,
and they don't have the self-love, do they? But
no,
they'll probably relate to those attributes that you just listed there, where you're just kind of, it's that analytical, you're just kind of so focused and driving forward. I would say
I need a solution rather than I need to listen to my gut.
Yes. And as soon as you say, I need a solution, it's just that striving energy. And it puts us into that stress response, that fight or flight, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah. And it takes us out of our bodies and into our heads.
Yes. And this isn't gender specific either.
No, we have both energies. We carry both energies, and there has to be a balance. But for example, like some people lean more into masculine energy or others lean more into feminine energy. Like it's not 50-50. It could be like 60-40, or it could be 70-30. Like my husband has a very strong masculine energy, and I have a very I can do both, but I feel myself going into my masculine energy, and then we lose the polarity. There's no attraction anymore. So I'm like, I have to bring myself back into my feminine energy to have the polarity with ourselves. But like everyone has both energies, and it varies from person to person where it is.
Yeah.
And like they say, opposites attract, right? So
absolutely. I can
Yeah.
remember you saying like it's actually being more aware of the masculine and feminine energy and going down this road, because you kind of took your studio from being like the fitness, the hardcore kind of, you know, strength building, and you went and you did a rebrand. And I remember watching it on social media and loving it. But it's that kind of, I'm going to go and follow what feels right now, what feels aligned.
Well, and that's it. And like I felt with my second pregnancy, that's when I was feeling really into my feminine energy at that point. And that's when I was like, oh, I love being in this space where I'm just able to receive, and I'm able to like take it in. And you know, my husband and I were having like amazing sex at the time because it was just like it was so,
it's free flowing.
It's free flowing. And then I feel like my point of burnout came after I had my daughter, because then it was like, oh, I have the kids at home and she's not sleeping, I'm not sleeping, and when I don't sleep, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And even in that time, it was really hard to prioritize myself. Like I was still trying to go to the gym and train and like do things, but I just felt like that's when I wasn't like, it was trying to balance both and being a business owner and having kids. And that's when I was like, I hit that burnout point where I was like, I don't know what to do. I need to sacrifice something. And at this point, I'm going to sacrifice my studio and be with my kids while they're young.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was like, and then I kind of let my staff take the lead. And then when I was going to the studio, I didn't really feel like it was mine anymore. And I was just letting them kind of, I don't know, it just didn't feel like me. So I was going in, it was almost like I didn't belong in my own space. And that's when I hit that kind of burnout time where I was like, it feels like a chore to go in. It feels like I don't want to be here right now. I don't want to teach this class. And I'm sure my students could pick up on that. The numbers showed like it was just not a good time for me. And then that's kind of when I felt like I had this whole identity crisis at the same time. So I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. I have 2 kids. I'm a new mom. I'm like, what am I doing with my studio again? So it was like a few years of like just juggling a lot of things. And I discovered like the whole concept of like erotic energy and the feminine masculine energy. And it just explained a lot of what was happening inside of me. So I remember it was maybe close to a year and a half now, like a year and a half ago, that I started the rebrand. So we just like, I announced to my staff, I was like, okay, we're going in a different direction. And that's kind of where I was like, I need to take this back to myself and do the work and like make this feel like home again.
Amazing.
And because I've been, I changed a lot throughout these years. So I was like, I need the old studio doesn't fit with me anymore.
Yeah. I was listening and I don't know, as soon as you said I didn't feel like I belonged here.
Yeah.
That really hit me, because I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of people who've experienced that, whether it's, in a relationship, a marriage, whether it is, a work situation, whether it's a business where because we just evolve and grow. We want to evolve and grow, don't we? We never want to stop that. And I think it's a really, it can feel a very scary, unsettling moment when you share those words like, oh God, I don't belong here anymore. Like this is, but it's It's hard.
It's hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we have to embody the feminine energy of nurturing ourselves. Because when
That's it.
perhaps you're not used to it, like you wouldn't have been used to it. And I certainly wasn't used to it either, because you just like, I want to achieve, I want to strive, I want to be the best, and I want to do this. And when you can't do that, and when that energy does not align anymore, it's like, where do I go now? And
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I was feeling. Because I was like, I don't want to be here. My lease is coming up for renewal. What do I do? Like, do I just close up shop? Do I just renew for a couple, And so I ended up renewing, but that's kind of like, it was at around the same time where I was like, you know what? What do I value most? And I did a lot of like inner work. And then that's when I was like, I'm going to go into this direction. And that's kind of where the rebrand started. Because I was like, I'm going to put the emphasis back on me and what I need and what I really want out of this space and what I want my clients to feel and like how I want to serve my people. And that's what I did. And I was like, I need to do something, because otherwise I'm just going to be miserable.
Yeah, and it's that cycle of kind of just, you dance between burnout and just trying to keep your head above water, but just being so unhappy, and you just feel really lost. It's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible feeling. You feel very stuck in that cycle. But I love how you kind of just stepped into what was starting to feel right for you. And it's that intuition piece.
Yeah. Yeah, because it started around like January last year and like 2023. And that's kind of where I was like, you know what, I'm going to lean into this. I don't know what the final destination is. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to, step into my feminine energy and see what happens and listen to my intuition. And that will help me, that will guide me through this transition.
Oh, I love it. And honestly, I feel you share this with your students, your clients, because having been a participant in your class, it's really lovely, Karolyne. You come with this beautiful, really warm, gentle, just loving energy. And for me, intuitively, I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I can remember turning up and thinking, what am I doing? And I think we can safely say, like, those first 2 classes, I was in my head because I just wasn't able to, you just start to overthink it. And it made me realize how, I guess, the patriarchy, like the societal expectations, like you forget how subconsciously imprinted it is to assess how you are performing, even when it's like for fun and it's pole and it's meant to be sensual and enjoy it and just go with the flow. I firsthand experienced how, oh my God, I thought I was doing really well with burnout recovery and my growth. And then I was like, hang on a minute, here I am in a pole studio looking in the mirror, and I've still got a lot more work to do.
Well, you know what it is too? It's a new skill that we're learning. So like women especially are not used to failing in their adult life. And learning pole, you're going to fail a lot. But you know what happens? You try again, get back on that horse and go. And it's going to, like, you're going to fall, you're going to hurt yourself. I mean, hopefully not there, but you're going to get some bruising. You're going to, it's like, it's going to happen.
Yeah. It was interesting, wasn't it? Because you were showing us how to do some of the spins, and I love the spins. I think they're amazing. It's so cool. And I couldn't let go of the bloody pole, could I?
Yeah, no, you had a lot of issues with that.
Yeah. And I was like, Karolyne, I'm not sure why. Like, why is this a mental thing? And you straight away were like, look, I think there's some self-trust going on. And I was just like, oh my goodness.
That's it, because you have to trust yourself, Paul, to be able to let your body just move around the pole. And especially if you're doing a spin with both feet off the ground, there's a lot of trust happening inside of you. So if you don't have that element of trust, then it's going to be really hard physically to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many mental health benefits to pole, isn't there? Like, it's
absolutely
so good for you. And I'd love to share some of those with people listening, because I think, again, and we spoke about this in one of the classes, didn't we? Where, you know, there can be this stigma attached. It's a taboo, not a stigma. It's more of a taboo, isn't it? About kind of pole and how people perceive it. And it's so far from that. And I'd love you to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, like, I guess when you think about pole dance, now it's more mainstream. So I feel like there's two different avenues. But before, when I first started in 2009, like, I had a lot of comments of like, oh, you want to become a stripper? You want to, and it's like, do you know, like, no, I'm personally, you know, I'm not going to be dancing, but like, I'm doing this for myself. But also, do you know where pole comes from? And like, we are learning the art from the clubs and from the strippers who invented this freaking sport, you know, or like this art form.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And like, we have to honor that. And yes, that's where the sensuality and the like being into the feminine energy, like, this is where it comes from. Because like, a good friend of mine told me, she's like, you know, the strip clubs is where people go to worship the feminine.
Yeah.
And it's true. It makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. I can remember you telling me that. And then that kind of changed my perspective for the rest of that class. Because instead of looking in the mirror at myself and trying to kind of look at how I was holding myself and whatever, I was like, fuck it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to close my eyes. And I think I actually started to be able to move much better, because I was like, I wasn't judging or assessing myself. I was like, yeah, you're right. It is to worship the feminine. And I'm going to actually now worship my own femininity. And I'm not even going to look in the mirror. And then everything shifted a little for me.
Yeah, because then it becomes about the feeling and not about what it looks and what it should look like, or what it, you know, are my toes pointed enough? Are my arms extended? You know, it's about how it feels inside your body. And that's the embodiment piece of EmbodiPole.
Exactly. And I'm just piecing this now together, because I'm thinking, okay, so you burn out, it's because you've abandoned just your own needs, your own self-worth, you're not caring for yourself, you're just putting all your energy towards something else, whether that's work, whether that's a relationship, whatever. People burn out for different facets of their life. But yes, you're right. As soon as we then kind of take the reins and start to kind of worship ourselves, like, look at caring for ourselves, look at honoring ourselves.
Yeah.
And it shifts. And
we come back home to ourselves.
Yes. And it's that embodiment of the feminine energy, not just the masculine.
And the slowing down and feeling our emotions. Because I grew up, well, up until I think even pre-pandemic, I was always suppressing my emotions. Like, I was I was drinking a lot, and that was kind of my way to like deal with like social anxiety. And then I'd have a beer, and then I'd be like, okay, now I'm loose. I can talk to people and feel more comfortable. And whenever and now it's like, also, I guess, being pregnant, I was like, oh, I'm not drinking. But that's when I realized that, like, I don't need to drink. This feels really good.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's nice to wake up and feel energized and feel like not hungover. And
exactly.
Right. So and then that's kind of when I started also like working with a life coach and stuff. And then that's when I realized, I'm like, oh, I actually have anxiety. I have a lot of like suppressed stuff inside my body. And I'm like, oh, this is what that is. Oh, this is, and like figuring out, discovering a lot of what is inside of my body.
The slowing down piece is huge.
It's really big. Yeah. And it's really hard to slow down if you're not in a position to slow down.
Yes.
Because for me, I needed to get pregnant to slow down.
Right.
But I feel like knowing like what I know now, I'm like, oh, if I'm in that go, 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 now I have the tools to slow down and to rebalance it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to teach at the studio as well. It's like, can we move a little bit slower? Can I force you to slow down? You're gonna fucking hate it because you're like, I need to move fast. No, no, no. But like, can we work with that slow energy and start to feel what's in our bodies?
Yeah. It's not a given, is it?
It's not. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still struggle with it sometimes too. Like I'm not perfect at it.
I know it's funny because I'm thinking of your classes, and that was something I really struggled to do, was to slow down. And they were in the evening, so it's not even like I was kind of, and my kids are older, so it's not, there was no reason for me to turn up moving as fast as I was, but yet I did. And then I walked in and it was that lovely reminder to slow down, which, you go, okay, I'll slow down a bit. But actually, no, you need to slow down even more. And that's what's so lovely about having kind of someone like you doing the work you do, because that pivotal kind of 10 minutes of being told to slow down and then being encouraged to slow down even more is huge for someone in their week.
Well, and it can bring up a lot of different emotions, right? It can bring up some anger. It can bring up some fear. It can bring up some just like disgust, even it can just bring up a lot. And we're not used to feeling and taking the time to feel it. So what do we do with all this information all at once, right? It's like, okay, take a breath. Can we welcome it inside our bodies? Can we play with it? Maybe move from that space and see how it feels. And like, we're not doing therapy, but we're just working with how we feel in the moment.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have, which you have beautifully done. You've created this incredible, lovely, calming, compassionate, but very safe space for people to come and, pole and kind of try and step into this sensual way of moving and this feminine energy. And that's really important, isn't it? To have the space to do that.
Yeah.
I think, I guess I talk about this because I know a lot of people, I did it firsthand, and I know people who, when they hit burnout, you try and manage it on your own. And I think it's because you've been doing so much on your own anyway, whether it is, working so hard on a business, a job, a relationship, or whatever. You feel you've kind of abandoned yourself, and you're very on your own. And I think that's what's so lovely about pole that people may not associate, is the lovely community feel.
Yeah. And that's it. And like, everybody is so supportive and so welcoming. And it's like, if you come in with a lot of, some strong emotions, like, we're all going to be there to support you. We're not going to be there to judge you or to shame you, because that's not our culture at the studio.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. It's so important to, for people who are going through a tough time. We're so hardwired, aren't we, to have community. Like, it's a real threat to us when we don't have people around us. It's just our hardwiring. And I think that community feel and acceptance can often help. It becomes the bridge to you accepting yourself.
Yes. And it's one of the key pieces to happiness.
Yes, it really is. It really is. There was a big, long study, I think it was 85 years at Harvard, and they were saying, like, the key to happiness is our relationships, our connections.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important. And sometimes when you can't nurture yourself, it's so lovely to lean back onto a community where others are nurturing for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. So for someone listening to this who are getting a little pole curious now.
Yeah.
I love it. What would you tell someone, who was like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this?
Yeah, I mean, like, so at first it'd be, why do you want to do this? What is, what the interest that you have to do this? And then if they're like, oh, I want to get strong and build core and build upper body strength, and it's like, okay, but let's go behind the why. Why do you want to do this? And then, other people will say like, oh, I really want to tap into my sensuality because I feel like that's been a missing piece in my life. So it's just navigating the, like, what is the reason behind why you want to achieve these goals. And so that's kind of like step one. We do a consultation, a free consultation. So for anybody who's interested, I can meet with them and we'll discuss like their goals, their needs, their schedule, and from there we can recommend the best solution for them, or the best, like, maybe it's this class that they should start with, or if they have previous pole experience, then they can, we'll do an assessment and see where will it land, kind of thing. But it's like we ask them the why behind what they want to do. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to have, good upper body strength. Why? And then they're kind of like, I don't know, because I just want to be strong.
Well, just because that's what I should be doing.
That's what I should be doing. Yeah.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's kind of figured, like, looking a little bit deeper past those superficial layers of like, I want to have like shredding, I can grate some cheese on my abs or something.
So true. It's so true, because I
like,
can
what does that mean to you? Yeah,
exactly. Because I can remember thinking, right, okay, I've got a couple of weeks to my first class, so I'm going to start doing some push-ups and sit-ups because I've got to get a better core. And being completely astounded that after my first class, it wasn't even about that for me.
No.
It was the tapping into, it was the mental aspect. It was being able to open up. It was being able to be vulnerable. It was being able to maybe do something I've never done before. So it's interesting that you say, as women, as adult women, we're not used to failing. We're not used to
failing.
Yeah.
And it's big as we get, we fail and we're like, oh, we're not good enough. We get all this like shame that we start to feel. And I feel like at that point, it just piles up. And then we get into our heads, and then it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then we move on to the next thing that's easier to learn, or that is comfortable.
Yes. So I'm just thinking, like, I'm listening to this and processing it in real time. So pole is not only good for us to really help us embrace that femininity within us, but it's also really good for us to, to slow down and to embrace a new side that we're not always going to be perfect. As soon as you said, oh, I'm not good enough, I was like, oh, yeah. How often do women say those words?
And that we feel it. Like, I feel that a lot, right? It's like throughout a lot of my different achievements and things like that, I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. When am I going to be good enough? There is no answer to that question. It's, how can I heal my wound of not feeling good enough?
Yeah.
And just keep doing more inner work and like figuring it out and working on yourself and doing what truly matters to you. And that is basically, we're feeling into our highest self, or becoming our highest self. And that's at our studio, we call it the authentic erotic. When we tap into that highest self, that's our authentic erotic. We are in our authentic erotic. We're feeling our erotic energy, which is this like vibrancy, and it's pulsating outwards, and it's like our full creative, full expression, full just like, this is me. This is me, take it or leave it, but I am me.
Yeah. And my God, like, we all need to be tapping into that, don't we?
And it's hard. It's hard. It's a practice. It's not always going to be easy. And I find for myself, I swing a lot back and forth where I'm like, some days I feel a lot more shame and a lot more fear and a lot more, but then it's like, how can I work with myself and do maybe some emotional release practices or some things to kind of clear that up, and then so I can feel my most liberated self.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. And this is not specific to genders or age, is it?
No, absolutely. And that's another point I was going to say. So like, we're not a women's only space. We do have men and we have trans and we have non-binary and other gender identities. And it's like the people who do come to the studio want to work on that feminine embodiment of embodying the feminine energy and becoming their most authentic erotic selves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so good for your nervous system because it's taking you out of being in that stress response. I think, I mean, it's interesting, you know, when our nervous system's that heightened, we often have to close the stress response by, you know, kind of removing that cortisol from our system.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the best ways to do that are kind of, you know, exercising, like going for a run or burning out, or like having connection and having a hug from someone, or a really good orgasm. And I'm like,
Yes.
I think also, like, I would put pole in there because you're just like, you've got to, it's helping you just kind of shed those layers of stress.
And you know what all of those things have in common? It's all about pleasure. It's about play and pleasure and feeling into our bodies. So it's like pole can bring us pleasure when we can get into that flow state and dance it out and really feel into like I'm fucking amazing. I'm fucking hot right now. Look at me, right? But it doesn't, you know, it's not for anybody else. It's for yourself. It's for like, if I do videos and stuff on Instagram, like it's for me, and I like to look back at my videos, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done a little bit, you know, differently. But in that moment, I'm like, oh, I feel fucking great.
Yes, exactly. It's for you. It's for you.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not performing for anyone. It's that experience of embodying your, is it your soul, your true core, your, as you say, that energy.
Your authentic erotic.
Yes. Oh my God, Karolyne, I knew this would be a really good conversation. It just goes to show how important it is to look at the bigger picture, and not just for burnout, just for life, just for that kind of misalignment. You know, it's so easy, isn't it, to feel very lost because we're brought up to be like, do this and then this and then this and then this. And I see it even with my kids, they're teens, and one of them, you know, he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my teachers are pressuring me. And I'm like, love, you're going to live your life and you're going to change and you're going to do different things. Like, we are not going down that road of pressure. And I think it's so easy for people to do that, or to be, have navigated that path for decades and then be
absolutely
where they're like,
and it's really hard too, because I've noticed that people tend to look to others for answers, but really the answers are all within us. And I've been noticing that for myself too lately, because I, you know, with the business transition and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I just wish that it would go like this and do this, and I just want and I'm just kind of like, oh, I just want someone to do it for me. But I have to take accountability. If I want something done, I have to do it. It's the answers are all in me. I just have to, you know, take a second, listen to my body, and really feel into what my intuition is telling me to do.
Oh my God. And you know what? That is so evident in how you present to the world, how you lead your classes, and also how you're sharing your incredible work with the world on social media, because it's your social. I love it. It's so it's so rare to see a small business have such authentic social media. It
and
really,
I try. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but
no, but it's you. And
It
I'm
is, yeah.
thinking it's everything. And when you do your classes, and you have some brilliant instructors as well, don't you, at the studio?
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's for every single class I attended, and I know, like the first one I was like, woo, and the second one I was like, oh, and the third one I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then something switched, and then the fourth one I was like, this is why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I
but
remember the fourth one, there was a lot of moves that clicked for you where you had been practicing them for 3 weeks prior. And then the fourth class, you did it the first try and you landed it. And I was like, damn, girl. You know?
it was so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because you put up a lot of videos on your social media, don't you, of your movement and whatever, and you encouraged me to take videos, and so I have one from, I think, the second class or maybe the first, and then I have one from the fourth, and they're just for me. No one is seeing
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
They're
Yeah.
just for me. But I was looking at them last night just because I knew we were going to be having our interview, and I was just getting into that kind of flow of, what we were going to talk about today. And there's a real difference and it's not in the skill level, it's just how I'm holding myself.
Yes. And I noticed that too. It's like there's a different vibe to you coming into that fourth class, especially. I felt like that was the fourth class where you really started to shine and you were able to let go.
Let go, yeah.
And like feel a little bit more liberated.
Yes. And it's I guess we keep using that word, don't we, embodying, which is why it's so perfect for your business. But it's such a difficult thing in life to try and embody your true self. Like, we see it everywhere, don't we? There's books like coming out about years about trying to do this. But I do feel that, Pole, and certainly the work you're doing in your studio is really helping people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So important. So important. Oh my gosh, Karolyne. Like, oh, I know. It's interesting, isn't it? Here we are, talking about burnout, like kind of being lost in life, trying, like changing that inevitable growth, which is so healthy and good. But I know, hand on heart, when you're in the middle of it, it's
shit.
painful. It's shit. Oh my God, it's shit.
I feel like I'm finally coming out of it now, where I'm like, I'm feeling more grounded in what who I am. But like, I remember a few months ago, even, I was just like, like it's exhausting.
Yeah.
I have no energy to do anything. And like, especially, and I'm stressed. I'm like, got all these emotions happening. I'm trying to heal at the same time. I'm trying to figure out who I am. And it's a big, but I also feel like I needed to go through that to really embody what I teach.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Because otherwise, who am I to teach you this if I haven't had any experience with it?
Oh, exactly. Exactly. There's nothing better than listening to someone else's lived experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this conversation is going to give a lot of comfort to many people listening, because we all have those moments where we're like, what the fuck am I doing? And oh my God, like you go so far that you're like, I can't turn back. I can't go and be that old version of myself.
No.
But
I've walked through a portal and that portal has closed.
It has. And that's the point where I go, I just want to have a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit and lie down because I'm not sure I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so, like, people like you sharing their lived experience and shining a light for just listening to yourself, following your intuition.
And that's been a priority for me now. It's like any small or big decision that I make, it's like, okay, what does my body feel? Because in the past, I've had a lot of, my intuition was telling me, and it was like, don't do it, don't do it. And I was like, you know what, I'll just give it a try anyways, and I'll see what happens. And then I ended up getting fucked somehow. And then it was like, I fucking told you so.
It's so true. Why do
Yeah.
we do that? I do that all the time. Because intuition is like a very quiet voice, a quiet knowing.
Exactly.
It's very easy to go, oh, no, that's not right. And then, yeah, you're right. Every time you get fucked home, you're like, oh my God.
I'm sorry, I should have listened to you.
When will I learn? When will I listen?
But the more, and it's a practice too, because like I remember at first I was just doing what I thought I had to do, right? It was like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. But then I started to, it's when you start to slow down and really feel into your body that that voice becomes louder and you can feel it and you can hear it. And it's just, that's when you're like, oh, and now I know, like if there's even a small decision of like, oh, do I merge to this lane when I'm driving? Like I can feel it. And then it's like, do I listen to it or not?
Yes, exactly.
Like little things. It's subtle, but the more you practice it, the better and easier it's gonna be to really lean into it.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, I bet your pole journey, experience, everything has led you to this point.
Absolutely.
To push yourself to that point.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Karolyne, you're inspiring me. I'm going to trust myself and I'm going to let go of that damn pole.
Yeah.
You watch me in the next class. You're going to be like, she's got it. She's
it. You'll see in the next class, you'll just be flying all over the place. And
I know. I remember in the second session, I was starting to get really like in my head. And you said, Flic, you're just going to get it one day and then everything's going to click into place. And I kept telling myself that. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, this has been absolutely amazing conversation. I knew it would be. And I just love how, just how it's completely debunking all the myths about pole being just about being really like strong and, performing for others. And it's not about that. It's all about you and nurturing.
Well, but I feel like the pole, that's the kind of other direction that the pole has been taken to. It's like, oh, they were talking about maybe bringing it to the Olympics and stuff. But it's like, that's going to take out that whole sensuality piece from it.
Yes.
And you can't do that. I don't know. I'm not pro Olympics for like bringing pole into it.
Yes.
It's about the creativity. It's about being in the feminine. And once you take it to that, it's more into your masculine energy.
It is, isn't it? You're putting it straight into that masculine energy. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Huh.
So it's like a lot of studios around the world are like focused more on the fitness aspect of it. And then others are, more focused on the sensuality aspect. So it's just really finding what's right for you.
Yes.
And finding the right fit for you. But what we do is that we go all in, go sensual and hone it on ourselves.
Yes, it's amazing. And it's such a nurturing, lovely space. It really is. And I feel like I'm a true testament to it because I definitely turned up intuitively knowing this is what I needed to do next, but without realizing I'd show up every week with all these kind of reservations, and just I was having to confront so many things, so many thoughts and feelings, and he really helped me do that. So thank you. It was incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, so cool. So at the end of the conversations, I've been asking guests some like just quick fire, light-hearted questions because everyone answers so differently. So I'm curious, like on your dodgy, like really tough days, do you opt to move your body or move the remote?
It depends because it really depends how I'm feeling. Like if I haven't slept, maybe some days my body just wants rest and I opt for stillness. And at that point, I'm just like maybe full meditation. So, or more remote. But then other days when I do feel like I'm like, I need to, I'm like, I need to have I have some rage or I have some like, I need to move. Then I choose the movement part.
Oh my God. You see, even your answers are like embodying the masculine and feminine energy. I love it. it. I love it.
Well, and it just depends too, because some days it's just too much and I just want to numb out and I watch Netflix. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's okay. And we all need those days, and it's okay to have those days, but we got to pull ourselves back out of that and come back into ourselves.
Amazing. Okay. Bag of almonds or bag of Maltesers? Chocolate or savory, basically. Both.
I mean, I really like cheese. I'm more of a savory person, but I really like some CCAs, some chocolate covered almonds.
Yeah, that'll do. CCAs.
CCAs.
Load them up.
Yeah.
Do you ask for help or are you happy to hermit?
No, I don't ask for help very much, but it's something that I'm working on. So, and that's also being more into the feminine where I'm able to receive, right? So,
Yes, exactly. Like it can only be good.
yeah.
Oh, I know. Oh my God. Okay, so what's the one self-compassionate thing you're going to do today that your future self's going to thank you for?
Today, I'm going to move my body and I'm going to eat some really good food.
Oh, well done. Done. Hits the spot. Oh, Karolyne, I'll put in the show notes where everyone can find you and your amazing work. And I just want to say a huge, big whopping thank you for this amazing conversation. I knew it would be really good. And just thank you for doing the amazing work you do in the world, because
thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been so good. And obviously then people will be able to reach out to you and find out more.
Yeah, great.
Well, you take care. Okay.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Everyday Burnout Conversations. Take a peek at the show notes for any links to items discussed today. And if you want to continue the burnout conversation, you can find me on social media at Flic Taylor Writes, or you can head to my website, flictaylor.com, if you're curious and want to learn more on what it's like to work with me one-to-one. So in the meantime, rest up, don't forget to take good care of you, and bye for now.